For today, we're going to have a little bit of a different discussion. We're going to talk about a remote access tool, uh, Connectwise. Used to be called Screen Connect, I believe. So it's known by both names. So as we start talking about it, we have a couple of experts here. We have John Anderson and Russell Hopkinson to kind of help with the questions and kind of talk a little bit about the values of what old people like me call Screen Connect. I can't get used to calling it Connectwise. I still call it Screen Connect. So,
Me too.
yeah,
That's
old
how I know you
dogs.
taught me, because I call it Screen Connect too.
Yeah, old dogs, new trick. Russell's pretty good. Well, Russell's a modern man, so he says it the right way.
Technically,
So
it's actually Connectwise Control because Connectwise is the company
yeah,
and Control is the product. Now,
Control is the product. So Connectwise Control. So as we think about the Connectwise Control, the tool, and the tool that's been in the IT space for a long time, and as Russell said, kind of has been rebranded. Uh, uh, what do we see? What is the value proposition for using this tool? I'll open the floor to anybody, and I think let's kind of talk about that a little bit. What we see is kind of the value proposition, or why is this tool you know something that's important to be used, or a good tool for us.
Well, my big selling point for this thing is that it provides remote access from any computer anywhere with an internet connection that doesn't compromise your data because it's through an encrypted channel, and your data resides at the host or the end where your work computer is. It
Mhm.
doesn't leave there. So from a
So it's not
security
like you're
standpoint,
moving data necessarily, unless you want to. We'll talk about that
right?
later. But it's not like you're moving data back and forth. You're accessing it. It's secure, but it's remote. I mean, is this? Do you think? Do we consider it, or can we think about it as a viable alternative in some cases to a VPN? Sounds similar, but
It's
is it that
similar.
similar, or is it just similar and there's a use case for each one of them?
I think the
well,
use cases are a little different.
yeah, a VPN is basically just a network connection from one remote location to an inside location to basically make the resources on both networks, on one or both networks, available to the other. Screen Connect is really just a remote control option to access a server or endpoint, be it Windows based or Mac based, from an external location. So
So
think of
more
it
of a
as
specific
RDP on
device,
steroids.
right? So
Right.
more of a that specific device where the VPN is more of a pipeline between
Correct.
the resources. Okay, that's a good way to think about it. So while it seems similar, and when we describe it, it can feel similar. They really do have kind of two different use cases there. And we kind of talked about it a little bit. John, you alluded to it, and that is that kind of one end, the data stays there. So when you're using this tool, the data stays where it originates, or it stays at that end where you're accessing it. But do you have the ability to do a file transfer if you want to? And if you do that, is that file transfer, air quotes around it, secure?
Yes and yes. We can on a per user basis allow or disallow that function. But
So you can
yes,
lock that down. So you have the ability to say that if there's a concern about it or whatever, we have the ability to lock down the file transfer piece so that files cannot be moved.
correct. Either to or from each end.
Okay. Um, what about things like, so if I'm if does it have multiple platform support. So in other words, are you able to use, different, you know, like, could I access a Unix box or Linux or anything like that? Is it, do you have the ability to, from a workstation, access different operating systems or different types of environments? Or how does that work?
Well, if you're logging into remote accessing your desktop computer at your work, for example, whatever it has access to, you now have access to, whether that be a Linux server, Windows server, Mac, SMB share, doesn't matter, right?
Well, I
You
think
have access to all that stuff.
I think Kate's question was more along the lines of, can you have the host machine that you're accessing be a Linux server or a Windows server or a Mac?
Right.
That used back in the day, Screen Connect used to support Linux very well. Not so much anymore. So really, your options are limited to Windows and Windows and Windows.
So it's
With
more of a tool for a Windows environment, but to John's point, if the machine that you're accessing has access to a Linux machine through some kind of a terminal emulation or something like that, you would have access to it. But
yeah,
in
it's
Right.
general,
and again,
not
this is basically all this is really is primarily a remote control product.
right.
Now it does support Mac OS X, so you can use OS X as a host OS for control now, but it's just the Linux is officially
Mhm.
unsupported anymore and is a bit flaky.
Okay. Okay. Um, how about like you know, things like printing? Are you able to? So if I'm accessing a machine, through work, so if I'm at work, example, go home and I want to access my machine at work, and I'm going to use this tool to do it. Do I have the ability to print with that, or is it printing in the office, or can I print locally? How does that work, or can I do both?
If printing is enabled in your connection, then when you log into that computer remotely, it sets up a copy of your local printers uh, on the remote side. So you can choose those and it will print through the connection at home. So you can print something from work on your work machine on your home printer. And
And that's
again,
also
that's
configurable,
allowable and disallowable on a
right?
per user basis.
So, for example, if you were in a HIPAA environment, you didn't want people to be able to access and print stuff, that can be locked down so they aren't printing medical records at home.
Correct.
So, along that same vein, does the tool allow for multi monitors? So, in other words, maybe I have two monitors at my work, in my work environment. Can I run with dual monitors at home? I'm
Yeah,
accessing it remote.
absolutely. Good case. If you were to hop on my machine at home right now using Screen Connect, you would see all five of my monitors. It would freak you out because it would show up in one window on your one monitor, and you
You
can't see anything.
need a
But
magnifying glass.
you can select which monitor you want to
Oh,
focus on,
okay.
and it'll bring that one monitor up. You get a choice of one or all. So if you have a lot of monitors, that all selection's not very good. But the other option would be to open multiple sessions. If, say, you wanted to see two of my five monitors, you would open up two sessions and connect one to each of the monitors you wanted to see. And you can do that. You can have concurrent sessions.
Hmm, interesting. Um, and you can set it up, or you can use it in an unattended mode, or you could do unattended access with that. So,
Yes,
like, I don't need to have somebody, if I'm working from home and I need to access a machine that's at work or in another location, I don't need to have somebody sitting at that machine, right?
correct. The best practice for that is to put the power mode in high performance mode, on the machine you're trying to remote into, so that it doesn't go to sleep. If it goes to sleep, you have a shot on of waking it up using wake on LAN, but that isn't always successful. So your best bet's to put it into high performance.
So you might need to have somebody bring that machine back to life, plug into it or whatever, bring it back online if it goes to sleep.
Right.
Right. And
Yes.
like, so, how scalable is this, is the solution? I mean, is it something where you can only, one or two people can do it, or can you roll it out and have, you know, a whole group of people doing it? Is it a resource draw? How does, like you said, is it a scalable tool that can be used by more than one person?
We've got clients that have, I don't know, 15, maybe 20 users that use it on a regular basis. We use it internally, and we have a lot of computers we have remote access to.
Mhm.
Another nice feature of it is that, say, in your company you have an IT guy, a guy that does your IT for you, and you're having trouble with a problem on your desktop computer while you're remoted into it remotely. That IT guy can hop on that desktop computer with you and work through the trouble. So you can
Huh.
have, like I said about concurrent sessions, that's a really good way for troubleshooting when you're offsite.
Hmm. Now, can you use this with other tools? I mean, connect, you know, can it be used with other support tools, or is it just kind of a single purpose that's just inside um, Connectwise?
Well, what you can do, one feature that it has with control is there's what's called a briefcase where you can register certain executables or tools that you frequently use, in our case, to troubleshoot issues on remote machines or to install software, for example. So rather than have to copy over installation files or something like that, once we're connected to a remote machine, we just open the briefcase and select, okay, we're going to run, for example, the um, the disk evaluator to see, what the file utilization is on a particular volume. And we can run that without having to manually install anything locally on the machine there in order to run that. Is that kind of what you're talking about there?
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. I mean, and that's the concept of, you can have, like you said, you can have a set of tools that allows you to perform tasks that may or may not be installed on that remote machine, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Um, are there any other important features um for control that we should know about, or is there anything that I missed as far as asking you guys questions about it? Any cool stuff that we should be thinking about?
Well, just to kind of go previously to your question about the scalability,
Hmm.
like John says, we use that for all of our remote access to our managed devices for our clients, and we have just under 1,000 endpoints that we are currently managing just using the control software. In addition, we've got clients. I know John said we have clients with like 15 to 20 people, but one of our clients is actually a small city government, and they have upwards of 100 endpoints that their internal IT staff uses to manage their stuff internally. So yeah, it's extremely scalable,
Hmm.
and the the control server, the server that actually is kind of the bridgehead for the control resources and for facilitating communication to the endpoints, um, can be either hosted by Connectwise, or you can have your own Connectwise control server on premises or in your own private cloud or public cloud for that matter. And as your needs increase in terms of the number of endpoints you need to manage, all that's required is you just need to increase the resources on that particular control server to manage the number of concurrent connections and number of users and everything like that, and you're
So
good
if
to
you
go.
have
So
it either virtualized or in the cloud, it can be a pretty dynamic resource and
and extremely scalable.
elastic,
Yep.
extremely scalable. One more question from I guess I'll put it under the security end of things, but it's probably more broad than that. But if you're accessing a machine remotely, can you record that? Is that logged, or how does that is there some tracking on that you can enable?
Yeah, you have the option to either take a screenshot of something that you're looking at. You can save that to the clipboard. You can save it to a file. You can record video of steps. Like, for example, if we're troubleshooting something and we want to reproduce or we want to send a short video of
Hmm.
the problem that the end user is running into to like a third party like Microsoft or something like that to illustrate what's happening, we can do that. So yeah, it's a very
Yeah,
useful tool with this.
Another
yeah.
thing we can do with it is we can forward the remote machine's audio if we want to. So we can either that by default I believe is shut off because you don't want to hear every ding and noise that the remote machine makes. But we have the ability to turn that on. I've used that quite a little bit when troubleshooting audio issues for clients. I just turn it on and now I can hear what's coming out of their default sound card.
Nice. Okay. Very good. Well, it sounds like a very powerful and flexible tool, and I think that you know the capabilities for that will continue to grow, and kind of the way we think about the applications for it will continue to grow as well. So, um, thanks guys for the time today and lending your expertise. Appreciate it. And if anybody has questions, they can just get a hold of us, and we'd be glad to go over it with them and show them, possibilities for using the tool. So thank you very much, gentlemen.
All right.
You're
Have a
welcome.
Thank
great
you.
day.
Bye bye.